What role did gold play in the Cold War and the emergence of the petrodollar? Here's a doozy. This one's called Decline of the West. This one comes from the Sydney Tribune, dated February 11, 1975. Decline of the West. It's becoming all too clear that the power of the oil cartel threatens the future of Western civilization, wrote Fortune, leading US business magazine, in a December 1974 editorial. First, there is a short-term problem. The petrol billions are piling up in the form of short-term deposits in British and American banks. These banks cannot make long-term loans on short-term deposits to those countries which are now faced with massive trade deficits. The danger is that the latter may have to cheapen their currencies or restrict imports, or both, to reduce trade deficits. As a result, world trade will shrink and a global depression will result. The long-term problem, says Fortune, is that the high prices of oil leads to an unprecedented and unacceptable transfer of wealth. In 1975, the Organisation for Petrol Exporting Countries, OPEC, will have more capital reserves than all the gold and currency of the rest of the capitalist world combined. The sustained but comparatively gradual growth in the power of Western Europe and Japan in relation to the United States in the late 50s and throughout the 60s led to the crises in the 70s, until the United States was forced to recognise its new power relationship with Europe. Some theoreticians at the time speculated somewhat mechanically on the danger of war between the US and Europe, based on the very real clash of economic interests. The virtual overnight rise of the OPEC nations into a major centre of finance capital, impoverishing European capitalist powers and threatening the US, makes the danger of a war between them and the US even more likely. The threat of Kissinger and Ford to send in the Marines is therefore no idle boast. Imperialism finds such sudden shifts in power very difficult to absorb. The conservatives of OPEC, Iran and Saudi Arabia, hold all the aces as they are the major oil producers. They recently vetoed a plan by OPEC radicals for a new attack on US and Europe to finance cartels of other producers of raw materials, cut back production of oil to meet only the OPEC nations' current expenditure, and withdraw oil billions from the Western banks. Iran and Saudi Arabia instead proposed to freeze oil prices and recycle the petrodollars to Europe and the US in return for a form of indexation of oil prices to other commodity prices. The real question remains, even with the Conservatives' plan, whether US and European imperialism will accept the unacceptable transfer of wealth that is taking place. If they do not, the world could be thrown into a worldwide conflict.